Thank you for joining me for this episode. In Her Own Way is a space to create and spark conversations with women around the world who are living boldly. This podcast will offer new perspectives and status quo pushing thoughts from women who speak with heart, soul, and courage.
Brave happens in every facet of our minds and every part of our experience. If you're not doing well at the moment and you're in the trenches and you're wondering whether or not it's worth getting up tomorrow morning, that's brave.
Okay, so I am here with pretty much one of my most favorite people that I've actually never met in the flesh, Dr. Rebecca Ray. I pretty much stalked you until I got in the podcast last year to talk about your first book, Be Happy. And then I saw that you have another book out about bravery, and I can't wait until I get it in my little hot hands, which will probably take 10,000 years because I live in a regional area, but I digress. Why do I adore you? I adore you because you are giving something to the internet which it desperately needs, which is authenticity and courage and conversation and vulnerability and permission. And you keep it simple. You know, sometimes you read these posts and you're like, what do they just say? You know, it's too long, it's too winded, it's too just, you know what I mean? It's just too much. And I feel like what you're doing is presenting something really simple. So I won't go on anymore about how much I adore you. So I'll let
thank you.
So tell us about yourself. And then let's just dive into this conversation on brave.
Sure. Well, first of all, you're the first person that has ever cried in a podcast that I did. So I kind of adore you too for that, because I'm all the feelings. And when I get into podcast mode, I sometimes have to remember that I don't have to put on my psychologist voice and, be all professional. And that conversation I remember for being just so real and bringing me back to this mutual therapeutic space, it was just such a lovely conversation to get real. But everything that you said is the biggest compliment that you could have given me, because that's what I strive to do, is to simply be able to give people the information that I know, but also to do it in a way that they understand that if you want to know who I am, I'm just a human doing it too. So I can tell you the letters after my name, but they don't actually mean very much to me, other than they've been able to shape my experiences of the world and of life itself to be able to, I guess, translate that into some kind of language that might be able to help another person. So I'm just here practicing as well.
I love that. Right. So we can have someone said to me oh, well, you're a better life coach because you have a master's degree. And I'm like, I don't know that doesn't make me a better life coach. It just means I went to uni and then I can, conceptualize things that perhaps someone hasn't spoken about, or I can maybe filter it in a different light, but it doesn't mean that I'm necessarily better at something. I just have a deeper, maybe educational understanding of a concept. Doesn't mean that I actually apply it any better than anyone else.
Yeah, that's right. And that also kind of speaks to the space that we're in, that implies that there's this sense of scarcity about the work that we're doing. And I don't buy into that at all. So all I'm trying to do is take the stories that I'm living and have lived and shape it with the language that I know and the theory that I know to say, this is what fits for me. In terms of making meaning and making understanding, this is what fits for me. That doesn't mean that the world doesn't need what you have to say or what the next person has to say about their lived experience as well. That's why I don't really get into, well, who am I? Do you want the bio that people get sent when they say, can you send me a headshot and bio? I just don't love that. Because it makes me sound like I have a reason for being here that is over and above the fact that I'm just living too.
We could end the podcast now. I'm out. I just can we just sit in that for a minute? That actually makes me tear again. So maybe I'll start crying again. I just think that is so beautiful. At the end of the day, right? This has nothing to do about bravery or why I had you on here. But at the end of the day, right, when I was palliative care nursing, no one really cared what anybody was. They didn't. They actually just cared about their lived experience and all of that type of stuff. Like at the end of the day, someone's like, you know what, I really wish I would have gone and got that PhD and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, I really wish I would have been more brave, more authentic, more connected, less stressed, all of those things. Like everything, like my grandma always said, it all comes out in the wash. When it comes out in the wash, what you're doing is so important. So I won't cry anymore, but let's talk about this new book because I can't wait to have it. It's very pretty.
Before we get into that, can I just jump in? Because number one, I didn't know that you did palliative care nursing.
Yes,
and that would have been profound. And to segue into talking about Brave, it just made me think exactly of my nan, who last year passed away. Sorry. And 4 months before she passed away, my pop, who she was married to for 69 years, passed away in front of her. So they moved into a nursing home 2 weeks prior to that and had previously lived independently in their own unit. They had a room side by side, and she sat with him in his room for every day of every hour of that 2 weeks, and she waited until he passed. And after he passed, I went down and I sat with her, and she said to me, "Darling, all that matters in the end is who we love and how we love them." And for me, that is the essence of brave living. It's to accept all the horror and the brutality that we experience as humans emotionally, and to say, you know what, I'd do it all again because the love was worth it. And that's why we talk about bravery, because it's so bloody important.
It is so bloody important.
Mm.
It's just, sometimes I just think, I'm sure you have days like this, when you look at that and then you get online, you're just like, why am I spending, is anyone listening? Is this a mic on, for all this time, like make the perfect graphic and like have it timed, and Instagram like falls apart and the whole world falls off its axis today. And then, one of the things that I think about the most that I coach on, the most that you probably work in your psych therapy or you did, was connection and vulnerability, right? Like it is the essence of humanity. I don't care how much money you have. It's like, if you cannot connect and you don't have that connection, but it requires bravery. I remember Brene Brown talking about, in order to feel joy, you have to feel pain, because you have to be open. So why is Brave so important to you? You said to me before the podcast, this is a book I've always wanted to write. This is a book that was in my heart. And how beautiful of your nan. I mean, it's the truth. It's the essence of human connection. It's the essence of human living is connection. Yeah. We could go on about it. Kids that don't have connection by the ages of 3 struggle almost their whole life to be connected.
Yeah.
Those foundational neurological pathways are being formed before words. So why Brave? Why do you think Brave is so important in this society and where you are right now, and why this book?
2 different questions, why Brave and why this book. I'll start with why Brave. Yes. And for me, Brave because it encompasses our full human experience.
It is.
So you mentioned before we went to air that I was unhappy with the title of my book that came out last year. It's called Be Happy. I didn't choose that title. I love the book, by the way, but I just wasn't fussed on the title. The publisher chose the title to, appeal to a certain demographic. The reason I wasn't happy with the title is because I felt like it didn't really speak to what I believe to be the human experience, which is the full spectrum of colour of emotion. And so why Brave is because Brave happens not only in every area of our lives, but in every facet of our minds and every part of our experience. If you're not doing well at the moment and you're in the trenches and you're wondering whether or not it's worth getting up tomorrow morning, that's brave. It's brave to stay with yourself during that. if you're like my brother, ridiculously, thank God he survived, but he crossed Bass Strait. For our international listeners, Tasmania is a small state off the coast of mainland Australia, and the water in between is called Bass Strait. Very dangerous water, and my brother crossed that strait on a stand-up paddleboard earlier this year. He was the first person to do it. And he didn't get eaten by a shark, God love him. But for some people, that's bravery, you know? That's what we call it. And brave for me is everything from the time where you sit there and you go, I have to go back to the doctor and get another script for my antidepressants, and it makes me feel like I'm broken, but you go do it anyway. Or it's the time where you go, you know what, I'm actually giving up my 9 to 5 job and I'm opening my art studio. It doesn't matter what it is. I'm not saying what brave needs to be. I'm saying the process is what makes life beautiful.
Mm. It's interesting. I've never thought of brave as kind of the encompassing sentiment in a lot of things, right? Like it kind of encompasses vulnerability and authenticity holistically, because it's like that kind of one-stop shop of, are you being brave in your life? And that could just be like, I'm being brave because I'm not having 6 glasses of wine tonight. I'm having 1 and I'm going to choose to sit with the emotion.
That's right.
Or brave could be like, I'm going to go put myself into like a coaching, like, you know, an F45 challenge. Like it doesn't really matter. And I love what you said about that. It's actually relevant to you as the person, not in the context with which bravery is projected onto us as women, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the terms that I was talking to you about that I literally loathe with like the sweet hot intensity of 1,000 blazing suns is fake it till you make it. I hate that term. Like there's not a lot of terms that like really get my goat. That's not true. But that's one that I like really, really don't like, because I think what it does is it says like, okay, well, I don't know as much as Dr. Rebecca Ray, but you know what? I'm going to pretend that I do until I do, you know? And it doesn't actually bring any sort of alignment to me at all. I'm just trying to make myself someone else.
Mm.
Does that make sense to you? Do you see
that?
Oh,
absolutely. There's actually psychological techniques called fake it until you make it. And I have never sold them in inverted commas to my clients because I don't believe in them. So there is something so incredibly personally invalidating about saying, if you're feeling anxious, you need to show up to a situation and pretend that you're not. What bullshit. All that does is continually tell you that your experience is wrong, abnormal, or that you're somehow broken or defective because of it. And there are so many more effective ways that we can get to where we're going without having to fake our way there in the first place.
It's so true. I think it's absolutely one of the most paramount things that I coach with is bravery. Like just even like one of them that I can think of now in a completely different context is saying to your partner, I don't appreciate it when you just come up and grab me on my ass.
Yeah.
Like that can be really brave for someone, because what it's actually saying to that person is, I'm going to internalize what I need, what feels good, and then I have to verbalize it out, and I know I could potentially get rejected.
Yeah.
Like that's freaking brave.
Absolutely. I think it's so underrated what we do in our relationships to keep them healthy and how brave those things are. Because to keep your relationship healthy, you need to be real.
Totally.
And that is hard.
It is. Like, Andrew, I want you to leave me alone. Because if you don't leave me alone, your quality of life is going to go downhill really fast. That's how I approach it. And he's like, Ainsley, you want to go to bed? Out the door. But, you know, people are like, how do you say that to your husband? Like, doesn't he just, I'm like, not. Like, my job is to be really brave in my recovery. Because if I'm not brave in my recovery, then I am not being brave in my life. And so that is how I look at bravery for me. So when you're talking about bravery, why do you think right now, in the context that we're in, it's such an important topic to talk about?
Because I think it really speaks to the fact that we're in a place where we're told so often what we should be.
Yes.
And we're told equally as often, if not more, what we're not, usually not enough of.
Yes.
And being brave enables us to have some kind of way of being, not some kind of, but a way of being, to be able to move through all that noise to get to our true selves.
Love it. I love it. I love it so much. When someone is starting out, like let's say baby brave, like I've never put my foot down.
That's so cute, baby brave. Oh my God.
Can you make a little kids book about it? There's your next book.
I know. Oh, don't.
But do you know what I mean? Like, oh my gosh, I saw this like little, I think it was like a platypus or a hedgehog or something. I don't even know. I'll show it. But it was drinking milk out of this like syringe on this lady's hand. The little like nose was like sucking it up. I was like,
was this in the vortex of Instagram that you saw this?
Yeah, before.
Yeah.
Today. And I was like, look, it's a little, and he's like, Michelle, I'm going to go watch Star Wars. I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm going to go watch like little platypuses or hedgehogs drink milk. But that's baby brave, right? Like,
yeah.
I want to syringe feed brave so that you can just lap it up slowly. Like, so baby brave, and like baby shark, baby shark and it's mama shark and all that.
Yeah.
Wait until your son is obsessed with baby shark.
I haven't even heard that song and I plan not to. Like, I'm just staying away. I've never, no.
You wait until the indoctrination. Just you wait. So what I want to say is like, how do we start with like drinking out of the hand of bravery? How do we start as a baby brave? What are some like little key seeds that we can start to do? Because sometimes people look at that and they think, oh God, I don't even know where to start because I'm so like, this is so overwhelming.
Yep.
Where do we start?
Before we even start with planting the seeds, we're going to start with what the garden looks like. So before we even start with seeds, we haven't even walked into the garden. And how we picture the garden is how you're going to approach your brave. And what I want to say about the garden is it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's not just about the seed that you plant for the next piece of content that you want to produce for your audience, or for the promotion that you want to go for at work, or for, saying, yes, actually, I want to try for another baby, and that means that we have to go down the IVF path. It's not necessarily the things. It's understanding that brave exists everywhere you look, which means it's accessible in small amounts and really large amounts too, if you want to get radical. So when we talk about the garden, I want you to understand that if you don't feel brave at the moment, and let's face it, who does? So actually let me clarify that before we go any further. This is such a hole, but let me clarify the fact that people will say to me, oh, I want to be brave. And they don't get that it's not about being fearless. Boom. If we want to talk about things that make you want to stab yourself in the eye, fearless is one of my terms that does that. Because actually the process of being brave means you feel scared. So those two coexist. No, not even before, during. So while you're being brave, the act of being brave is scary, usually for the whole time that you're being brave. And so when we're talking about being brave, it's about coming back to this place where in your life garden, you can choose what it looks like on any given day. So when I was recovering from having Bennett, actually when I was pregnant, being brave was sometimes allowing myself to admit that the pregnancy was the most horrific physical thing I had ever been through. Even though on social media, that's not really acceptable. I never said it out loud. And in fact, I haven't really talked about this publicly before. And not because it's not acceptable, but just because it was a private process that I am coming to a place of healing about. But it's those tiny unseen moments that's as much baby brave as it is about going, when you're learning to skip when you're in primary school and you're like, do I go in now or now or now or now? It's like there where you get those steps and go, am I going to take that step next? It's more visible, and it might be in front of people, and it might be the time where you say, I'm going to go for my license today, or I'm going to go and I'm going to learn a new language because I want to travel to Italy. Okay, we're not all Liz Gilbert, but hey, we can dream. But you know what I mean? It's different sizes and different tastes for different people.
Love it. And then I think the first thing you thought about was, instead of figuring out like how to be a baby brave, the first thing you basically asked someone was, how does your garden look? Which then kind of goes into, well, how do you want to feel?
Yeah. And where are you already being brave? Like I think it's about perception. It's not about saying that tomorrow I'm going to be brave and therefore that means, I don't know, like I had a client that I contacted me the other day, an ex-client who I treated for driving phobia. And the big thing for her was driving into the city, scared the crap out of her. And so it could be that. But also, where are you already being brave in your life garden that you could, if only you reframed the experience, you could already see that brave was there? Because you just can't show me a human being and tell me not to find a place where they're already being brave.
Yeah. I think it pushes up against this idea that brave has to be big. Brave doesn't have to be big. It can be very small. It can be just a simple decision. It can be wearing the nose ring. It could be getting the tattoo. It could be, saying no, like there's lots of things that equal bravery. But I've found that as I have become more brave in my life, first of all, my boundaries are a lot stronger.
Yes. To saying no.
Yes. Yeah. So like now I'm like, it's kind of like you have to test it out. So like you do a little brave thing. Oh, that wasn't so bad. So you're like letting your brain neurochemically just calm down.
Yeah.
Because it freaks out. Like our brains love comfort. We were just talking about before. We are very primal. We love comfort. We love sugar. We love oxytocin and serotonin and dopamine. So we don't like to be in that kind of place where we don't know what we're going to be, what's going to happen. But I think that, like you said, small bits. And I love the idea of like where you're being brave now. I think is really important.
But also what you're saying brings up a really important point about life expansion. So when we're talking about baby brave and how that leads to ways of being bigger in your life, showing up in a bigger way, what happens is the difference between then and there, point A and point B, is confidence. You don't feel confident before you do something. You don't feel confident before you practice. And yet you practice that thing over and over again and your brain gets rewired to be able to take that action into your life as something that you now do. That means that you feel a sense of confidence. It means that your comfort zone expands, the more things that you can do, and therefore the braver, in inverted commas, you feel along the way.
I love that. I also just wanted to just briefly touch on this idea of like as a parent, this is just a random thought for you to, as an adult, right? Like as a parent, I say to my daughter, okay, you know what, you can go do that. Like you can go and do that. And the thing that we do as parents is then if they don't want to do it, we encourage them. But if they keep saying no, we comfort them.
Yeah.
As an adult woman, I have never until recently ever given myself any form of positive comfort. It was always binging or deprivation dieting. Isn't it such an interesting concept to, like, in the bravery circle, to like crank the shit out of compassion?
Yep. It's kind of critical.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah. If you really want to see what your potential is within your bravery, that starts with self-compassion. Because if you can't be gentle with yourself in the brave process or on the brave path, you'll quickly be stopped. And you'll be stopped by self-criticism. And that voice, the voice that completely disparages you and keeps you small and makes you quiet and then tells you all the parts of you that are defective and unwanted and unlovable and unworthy, that part doesn't help you be brave. We're socialized to think the more we slap ourselves around, then surely we'll get better, but it doesn't work like that.
It absolutely does not. It absolutely, fundamentally does not. When you're so baby brave and baby self-compassion, now there's a really important difference here. Self-care is not self-compassion.
No.
Self-care could be a tentacle of self-compassion.
Yeah.
But we need to be really mindful that there's not. how would you define self-compassion? And how do you baby self-compassion in your life?
For me, I think self-compassion is rooted in self-acceptance. So it's coming to a place where you first and foremost accept yourself as human, and that means having both strengths and imperfections. So it's a global acceptance of your wholeness.
Love it.
And then holding that gently. The second step is accept it, but then hold it gently and treat yourself the way you would a friend. And I was going to say loved one, but then I quickly retermed that as friend, because I actually think that self-love is a bit overwhelming at times, you know? If you are struggling to love yourself, then if we're going to start with baby self-love, people are going to listen to this and go, oh my God, how many babies are these girls having? If baby self-love is too hard, you start with befriending yourself first. It's actually easier to think of being friendly, speaking to yourself in a friendly way than in a loving way, because that's more encompassing.
I've also found too that being brave, or fake it till you make it, or be fearless, grind, hustle, be whatever you want to slapstick on, out of fear and manipulation and hustle never works. Ever. But when we come from influencing, quote unquote, or living in alignment, or making a brave choice, or placing boundaries out of self-compassion and self-love and authenticity, that stuff sticks.
Yeah. It's also an easier place to stay in.
Way easier.
Yeah. Because it's more natural. It's not requiring you to turn off your emotions or turn off your thoughts in some way to be able to reach some kind of impossible state like fearlessness.
Interesting too, because I remember I rang a online, or like a eating disorder hotline here in Australia, which I will not name. Yeah. And I truly believe for myself, and maybe I'm just junior in my addiction recovery, but I have accepted that I will always have the propensity to flip the switch as an addict. Always.
Sure.
And so in my recovery, my leash is tight. It's really tight.
Yeah.
Like I have to be really mindful of how much I take on and how much stress I have. And as I learn that, my leash gets longer, but right now my leash is tight. And I was told very clearly by one of the counselors, you're not recovered. You're not recovered because when you're recovered, you're no longer an addict. And I thought, isn't that interesting that even in addiction recovery, this idea of like self-acceptance and self-compassion and being brave, like I'm an addict, this is how I feel, is punished. And I think that when you were talking about that, about self-acceptance, it's like, I wish that 132 kilo Michelle could have accepted herself as loving and worthy then, because losing the weight would have not been so hellacious. So I think self-acceptance doesn't necessarily mean that you can't change or progress or heal. It just means right now you're worthy in and of yourself, and you have full permission to continue to heal or to continue to be healthier or continue to expand. That's
the nature of self-acceptance.
Yeah.
That there is that space in it. I think some people can see self-compassion as something that's really indulgent, but it's not a leave pass. It doesn't mean that you get out of doing the work.
No.
It's just a way of approaching the work that doesn't make it so bloody hard.
Yep. It's such an important delineation. So important. And I think you're exactly right. When we are self-compassionate and acceptance, then our bravery ability goes up higher. And when our bravery ability goes up higher, then our boundaries are a lot firmer. When our boundaries go up firmer, we live more authentically with more joy. Like it's
Absolutely.
just kind of domino, the linkage effect.
Yeah. And then that transfers to all our relationships. Because if you're being a more joyful, authentic version of you, the people who love you and the people that you're trying to love get loved more deeply. So that connection becomes richer because you're showing up without all the walls and all the guards and all the protection that you previously needed because your boundaries weren't great.
I love it. It just has impacts on like so many areas. So like one impact for me since working on this type of stuff is how I parent. So when I was parented, I was yelled at, I was spanked, I was chased down hallways. Like it was,
Ditto.
ditto, you as well. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So let's just be honest here. Like, I think I've spanked Ainley twice and I stopped when she was 18 months. It wasn't even hard. And I remember her looking at me and I'm like, whoa, that's not what I want to invoke in my child. So I've never done it ever again. I will never, I will never do it. Don't message me if you spank your children. I'm going to fight. Because they don't learn from that. And we don't learn from the same thing. If we're mentally hitting ourselves or abusing ourselves, we don't learn. And so one of the things that happened was recently she had this massive tantrum. She never does, but she was just fried. She was so overwhelmed emotionally just from school. And so what I did, instead of like getting really angry, which is you just like, stop doing that, just go to bed. I just sat on the floor and I held her. And she screamed for 20 minutes in my ear, but she never let go.
Wow.
And to me, that was really brave for me.
Yeah.
And I think if we can flip it around for ourselves, when we want to melt down or we feel like we're going to melt down, if we show up with that compassion.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's so beautiful. I come from a family who like to switch emotions off. They like to compact them away where they're unseen, and the only emotions that are really acceptable are anger or, sarcasm in the form of joking and, the classic Australian deprecating way.
Yeah.
And what that makes me think of is how brave it is to be able to sit in the emotion that your daughter is experiencing, because that requires you to get vulnerable too. Now, I'm not attacking my parents because they didn't know any better.
Okay.
They were both taught, in inverted commas, by their own parents how to deal with emotions, which was not to deal with emotions. And so for them to be able to deal with my emotions as an emotional child was not only not within their abilities, they literally didn't have the skills.
Yes.
But they also didn't have the courage to sit and be vulnerable in the emotion for themselves, let alone with my own feelings. Because as I know now as a parent, I used to know this intellectually. I know lots of things now emotionally that I only used to know intellectually since I've had a child, which is, oh my God, why didn't someone tell me how much this parenthood thing hurts? But what I know is, it could almost make me cry thinking about it. It is so hard to see your child in pain.
Yeah,
and in fact, I'm not sure I've ever experienced anything harder, and that includes trauma, because it's a completely different kind of thing. But to watch your child in pain and then to be brave enough to approach that pain and not run from it and sit with it like you did is the most beautiful vessel you could have ever provided her. That's how we get courageous in our connections. It's by coming to you, not running from. And it's exactly the same for ourselves. If you're going to be compassionate, if you're going to be brave with yourself, you need to come to yourself, not run away.
Love it. Well, we both cried, so I think it's a win.
Wrap up.
Everybody, was so nice for coming tonight. Make sure to drive safe home. Make sure you turn your lights on. Yes, to all of it. I feel like there is this hunger, and I feel like we overcomplicate bravery because we think it's like some prescriptive thing, or it's some like 15-step program, or it's some like expensive retreat in Bali, or it's some juice cleanse. It's like, it's not that. It's literally showing up in your Kmart leggings, no bra on, and greasy hair, and being like, I love myself today.
Yep.
It's showing up every day when you have overeaten or you binged or drank too much wine and be like, I'm going to show up to love myself as much as I can today. It's ringing that GP. It's going to that psych appointment. It's going to the school drop off and being nice to everyone some days, It's all the all. But it must come from a place of self-compassion. Otherwise, it's just another flipping grind. It's just
exactly.
another grind.
Yeah.
Love it. So, Beck.
Yes.
Tell me, your book, where can we get it? When is it out? I'm ordering 35,000 copies. Everyone's getting them. I send them out as gifts all the time because I love everything you do.
Thank you so much.
First tell us about the book, and then I'm going to make sure everyone knows how to get in contact with you online.
Okay, sure. The next book is out on the 26th of March here in Australia. For anyone listening overseas, I'll have international release details at some stage. I don't have them right now. It's called The Universe Listens to Brave, and my community have been so beautiful and asking me for years for somewhere that they could go where they could access all my little mantras and affirmations in one place. And The Universe Listens to Brave is it. And it encompasses the areas of bravery that I love so much, things like healing and building trust and sitting with uncertainty and rising after something has happened and being able to continue on the journey. And in each of those areas or each of those chapters of the book, you'll find the thoughts or the inspirations that you need to be able to continue on that part of your journey. So it's a book that you'll want to sit with, and it's a book that you'll want to give away as well. So I think of it as the book that I wrote for the people that I love most, but it's also the book that I wrote for myself. Because I wanted somewhere that I could go where I could just open the cover to any page and go, actually, that's what I needed to read today. And that's what this book looks like.
So excited. I'm so excited. Now, Instagram and Facebook, you're there playing hard.
Yes, that's right.
Good.
Well, I don't really play hard. I just post when I can. Let's be real.
Yeah, but you play hard in the sense that, like, you're just rocking the boat. You're not rocking the boat. You're just kind of saying to people, like, look up, child. Just keep looking up. You don't have to play that game that you've been sold your whole life or the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And beautiful imagery, gorgeous. Have you been working much with Liz still? Liz and Maya on some letters?
So, no, not recently. We haven't done anything together, but all the lettering on my page is stuff. It's Liz made. She does such beautiful work. Most of my book and my head are by amazing photographers that I credit in the caption and tag as well. So please don't credit any photography to me because it's not mine.
Yeah. So,
and let's be real. Instagram is a lot of content, so I like to share other people's beautiful work.
Oh yeah, and there's so many creatives out there. People can find you at rebeccaray.com.au, and you guys, there's links to
That's right.
her shop tab, her media events, how to connect with her. And you have a new program coming up, which I'm really excited.
I do. I stopped writing one of the modules to come and do this interview with you right now. It will be released, I'm hoping, at the end of April. It's called Radical Courage, Transforming Fear into Freedom. And I don't feel like I've ever been so aligned in creating something for my community except for writing my books until now. It's just, I don't even have words for it. I'm so in it, and I just cannot wait to share it with people because I think it's going to turn brave into something that's a lived experience for them.
You are a gift. You are such a gift.
So are you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for interrupting eating Milky Ways and writing programs. I feel you.
It is my life right now. Thank you for having me. I really did need to be torn away from that Milky Way. The rest of it's waiting for me beside my keyboard.
It will always be waiting as an entrepreneur creative. It's never done. The work is never done, ever.
But what a joy. What a joy to have this as the work, you know.
So true. Everyone go check her out, rebeccaray.com.au. You're amazing. I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful for your voice and your courage. And I cannot wait to have you on again to talk about whatever else you're releasing into the world. So thank you again so much.
Thanks, Mish. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me for this episode. If you'd like to know more about me as a life coach, public speaker, and about my journey, please head to my website, mishpope.com, and click on the tab Connect with Mish for more information. Can't wait to see you back for the next episode.